introduce briefly and this is Koh Sato, who is one of the community member of Ohmaki. And I am a professor of Temple University, Japan. And Koh Sato just graduated Temple University last Sunday. And today he will show his movie, which is about the tsunami disaster. And he will talk about the video artwork. And this is Mr. Ingo Günther. He is an artist from Dortmund, Germany. And he has been working with Japanese art institutions for last more than 20 years. And today he will do a presentation about his new work called Tsunami. And the right end is Shinji Ohmaki. He's an artist based in Tokyo. And now he is doing the artist residence in the institution called ERA. And I and Shinji had a friendship for the last few years, and Shinji made a new work called Eclipse of Light, and it's on your back, and we're going to talk about the artwork. And first, Koh Sato, he will have a little speech, and he would like to show the video which he created for this exhibition.
My name is Koh Sato.
So can you see the video with the angle? If it's hard, maybe we can just move a little bit to see 7 minutes video. So feel free. It's a very nice video, so I hope everyone can see.
I'm Koh Sato.
Speak up.
My name is Koh Sato, and in Temple University I learn painting and photography. And I'm going to show my work for the tsunami. And photography, and there is a city called Remembrance. And this city is my parents live. And also I took the photo of the city, and it has my greatest work. Yeah, and this is the forest on the seashore, and I have 3 photography. And this is the forest, and there's my parents there.
This is a pine forest, right?
These are all pine forest. And after the tsunami, the forests were gone. I want to show that. And this is the beginning.
March 11th, 2 p.m. A devastating earthquake struck on the northeastern shore of the main island of Japan. The earthquake was magnitude 9. It was one of the biggest earthquakes in the world. The height of the tsunami was 33 feet, and it is almost equal to the roof of the 4th floor. In Japan, there were 15,000 people confirmed dead. 80 people remain missing, and they are presumed to have been swept into the sea by the tsunami. My parents live in a city called Rikuzen Takata, Iwate Prefecture, where is 300 miles far from Tokyo in the northern direction. Rikuzen Takata city is one of the most affected areas in Japan. The population of Rikuzen Takata is 23,000, and almost 10% of people passed away. Even now, people need help to recover from the pain of the earthquake. My father is a doctor. When the earthquake occurred, he was on the 4th floor of the hospital. The tsunami came while he was rescuing hospital patients. A patient could not breathe without respiration equipment, but by the damage of the earthquake, there was no electricity for the equipment. There was no time to carry the patient to the roof of the hospital. My father did not run away from the tsunami. He stayed with the patient, and helped the patient breathe by manually operated respirating equipment. Then the tsunami came up to the fourth floor of the hospital. The patient lay on an air mat, so his body floated on the tsunami. My father held the patient and the air mat. He stood on an office desk and continued to help the patient breathe. The tsunami came up to my father's neck. When the earthquake hit, I was in my house in Tokyo. My apartment is on the 7th floor. It was so shaking so much that I could not stand up without holding on to something. After a week, I was able to contact my father. He told me my mother was missing. May 28th, 17 days after earthquake. I went to Rikusen Takata with my father and uncle, and we started searching for my mother. Everything has collapsed. My father's hospital. My parents' house. I went to morgue. In the gym of elementary school, lay 400 bodies of the people who had drowned. My mother was not there. Almost a month later, I got a call from police. They said that they found a person similar to my mother's description. On April 10th, I found out it was my mother. When I saw her, she had black skin. I saw so many dead bodies. Most were in terrible condition. So she was better than I expected. It was so painful to see, but I thought I could bear it. Before I left, my brother said, "We need to look her again, so we can remember her." I looked into the black bag, and I saw my mother again. On her shoulder, there was white fangs. I could not understand. I could not bear the situation. My mother is dead. Without any doubt, her death was real. I could see it when I looked at her shoulder. On April 11th, a month after the earthquake, burned my mother into ashes. Smoke from crematorium chimney. Physically, my mother mixed into nature. She's gone, and back with nature. Funeral. My mother had a composed Japanese poem called Tanka. She had a master of poem, and the master lived in the same city as my parents. Also, the master was a patient of my father. My father felt the master might not have survived the tsunami, but she survived. She lost her home, but she attended my mother's funeral. She made a memorial address, and she read my mother's poem. My mother wrote this poem 1 year ago. This is the translation of my mother's poem. In the sea fog, dissolve myself and float. Rise up the river, embrace the earth. My mother back to the nature. May 18th, a place where my mother was found. Along Kesen River, 5 miles upstream from the sea. There was a small bridge, but it is gone now. An old man crossed the river with a small boat. I planted 1 foot of small pine tree. Before the tsunami, there were 20,000 pine trees on the seashore. There was only 1 pine tree remained, but the rest of the tree were gone. The lost will never come back. However, I can help the small tree start its new life. The small pine tree keeps growing. 5 years later, 10 years later, it keeps growing. The pine tree is going to be there after 100 years. By then, I will have passed away. If the pine tree I planted is still growing, I'm glad. I'm living. I would keep growing like the small pine tree. The city and people are not recovered yet. However, my life starts from here.